Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Recently, I had been doing videos about George V and his wife, Mary, Queen of Tech, and that's how I've come to find out about Prince Eddy. He was the son of Edward VII and Alexandra of Denmark. He was in line to take the throne, but he died before his grandmother, Queen Victoria, and his father, Edward VII. Eddy seemed to be a bit different, and one wondered if he had the ability to take the throne. So let us find out about this young man and if he would have been a good king or not. His childhood. He was born Albert Victor, but was known as Eddy. He was the son of Edward VII and Queen Alexandra. He was born at Frogmore, and his brother George was born 17 months later, and they were educated together. So this is when people started to find out that Eddy was different. He and his brother were given strict studies, and it also included games and military drills as well as academic subjects. The tutor found that Eddy had, as he said, a mind that was absolutely dormant. So that doesn't sound very good. He learned to speak Danish, but other languages and subjects he had trouble with. Sir Henry Ponsonby wondered if Eddy might have inherited his mother's deafness. Everyone had an opinion and other theories for his poor performances in studies. Possible physical explanations for his inattention or indolence in class include absent seizures or premature birth, because he was born 2 months early, and that could be associated with learning difficulties. But Lady Geraldine Somerset blamed Albert Victor's poor education on Dalton, the tutor. She thought him uninspiring. So Eddy and his younger brother George, later King George V, both went to the Navy as cadets. Their father hoped that the Navy would strengthen Eddy's character. It didn't, although George was most successful in his seafaring career. So Eddy then went to Trinity College, Cambridge, and hoped that it might develop his intellectual side, and that didn't work either. HistoryExtra.com stated that his time at Trinity College was the happiest in his life. His new tutor was James Kenneth Jem Stephen, a charismatic academic and poet just a few years older than Eddy himself. Stephen seemed to realize very quickly that the prince was far from stupid, and that his fine human qualities of kindness and empathy for others were strong foundations for a successful constitutional monarch. The young tutor worked hard to nurture Eddy's potential, stretching his mind through literature and poetry, and above all, simply soaking up the company of clever people. For the first time, Eddy was encouraged to see some value in himself, and to get his first hazy impressions of his own identity. So one of Albert Victor's instructors said that he learnt by listening rather than reading or writing, and had no difficulty remembering information. So next he went into the army, and he joined the 10th Hussars in June of 1885. He liked playing polo, but he didn't practice enough to play it well. But that was the limit of his military prowess. He also liked the clubs, the casinos, and the bars. So what did his family think of him? According to HistoryExtra.com, George, who was Eddy's brother, was the father's clear favorite, Father Edward VII. He found himself in the role, George did, to his elder brother. The Prince of Wales, increasingly irritated and concerned by his older son's apathy, kind of picked on him mercilessly. Even the doting Alexandra, who kind of babied all her 5 children and called them childish names when they were full-grown adults, started to worry, though she put down his lethargy down to having grown too tall too fast. They were just thinking he wasn't living up to the mark and unworthy of the position that he must hold one day as king. So Prince Eddy's grandmother was Queen Victoria, and she wanted him named Albert Victor after herself and her late husband, Prince Albert. So the Prince and Princess of Wales weren't too pleased by this, but they agreed to the name. Next up, there was a scandal. During the summer of 1889, Eddy's friend, Lord Arthur Somerset, was a client of a male brothel situated on Cleveland Street, London. Eddy went with him to the establishment several times. So while Arthur was in the police station, he said there was a more prominent person with the initials AV that frequented the place. None of the male prostitutes in the brothel ever named Eddy as a client, but there was a great deal of talk that seemed to suggest that he was there kind of frequently. According to Alcation.com, the inference that AV was their heir presumptive to the throne gave Somerset's leverage to get potential charges against his client dropped by royals keen to bury the situation. The Prince of Wales intervened and no charges were brought. Eddy was waved off on a conveniently organized extensive overseas tour. In May of 1890, with memories of the scandal fading, he was created the Duke of Clarence and Avondale and the Earl of Athlone by his grandmother. And then there was kind of these rumors that he was Jack the Ripper, and these claims were not officially published until the 1960s, over 7 decades after his death. It seemed that the mystery surrounding the prince's controversial lifestyle provided enough ammunition for a number of authors to explore the possibility of Queen Victoria's grandson being the serial killer of the 19th century Britain. At the time the Ripper's first victims were murdered, however, Eddy was in Balmoral visiting family, a fact that diaries and letters from other relations can confirm. So there's been other women in his life. According to Wikipedia, Prince Eddy had several secret relationships. In late 1891, Albert Victor was implicated as having been involved with the former Gaiety Theatre chorus girl, Lydia Miller. Her stage name was Lydia Manton, who committed suicide by drinking carbolic acid. Although she was the nominal mistress of Lord Charles Montague, who gave evidence at the inquest, it was alleged that he was merely a cover for the prince, who had requested that she give up the theater career on his behalf. And the authorities sought to suppress the case by making the inquest private and refusing access to the depositions. And then there were rumors surfacing in 1900, after Albert Victor's death, of his association with another former Gaiety girl, Maud Richardson, birth name Louisa Lancey, and that the family had attempted to pay her off. In 2002, letters purported to have been sent by Albert Victor to his solicitor referring to a payoff made to Richardson of £200. It was sold at Bonham's auction house in London. Owing to discrepancies in the dates and the spelling of the letters, one historian suggested that they could be forgeries. In mid-1890, Albert Victor was attended by several doctors. In Albert Victor's and other correspondence, his illness is only referred to as fever or gout. Some biographers have assumed he was suffering from a mild form of venereal disease, perhaps gonorrhea, which he may have suffered from an earlier occasion. But the exact nature of his illness is unknown. HistoryExtra.com said that on January the 7th, the day before his 28th birthday, he caught a cold and it turned into a flu, and Eddy missed his own party. The flu turned into pneumonia, and to the horror of his family, he was dead within the week. Just one victim of the influenza outbreak that killed many thousands that terrible winter. Queen Victoria played matchmaker in his life. Queen Victoria felt that if Eddy had a wife, she would be the one to settle him down. And her first attempt to set him up was with one of her granddaughters, Princess Alex of Hesse. Alex, in Victoria's opinion, showed great internal strength, and she was acknowledged as a beauty that would appeal to Eddy. The Queen was right. Eddy started to correspond with his cousin, Alex. Alex, however, was not the least bit interested in Eddy, and she was devoted to her grandmother, and she resisted, though, Victoria's influences on the matter and politely turned down Eddy's marriage proposal. Princess Alex would later become Empress of Russia when she married her lifelong love, Tsar Nicholas II. She would end up being killed along with her husband and children in Russia. Wikipedia stated that Queen Victoria came up with another prospect that he marry another first cousin, Princess Margaret of Prussia. On the 19th of May, 1890, she sent him a formal letter in which she expressed her opinions about Margaret's suitability to become queen. Of the few possible princesses, I think of no one more likely to suit you in the position better than your cousin Mossy. She's not regularly pretty, but she has a very pretty figure, is very amicable, and half English, with her great love for England, which you will find in a very few, if any, others. Although Albert Victor's father approved, Queen Victoria's secretary, Henry Ponsonby, informed her that Albert Victor's mother would object most strongly, and indeed has already done so. So nothing came of the Queen's suggestion in that case. And then Eddy pursued a romance with the Princess Helene of Orleans, daughter of the pretender to the French throne. The couple were deeply in love, but Helene was a Catholic, and unless she converted, Eddy would automatically lose his place in the British succession if he married a Catholic. So Helene was offered to convert, but she was dissuaded by her father and by Pope Leo XIII. So now Queen Victoria came up with another prospect, Mary of Teck. She was, in Queen Victoria's words, charming, sensible, and pretty, and the daughter of the penniless Duke of Teck and Queen Victoria's cousin, Princess Mary Adeline of Cambridge. Eddy and Mary were engaged, but just weeks later, Eddy caught influenza and died at the age of 28. In his place, Eddy's brother George became second in line to the throne and was later crowned King George V. Prince Eddy's death. Albert Victor's parents, his sisters Princesses Maud and Victoria, his brother Prince George, his fiancée Prince Mary, her parents the Duke and Duchess of Teck. 3 physicians, 3 nurses were present. The Prince of Wales chaplain, Canon Frederick Hervey, stood over Albert Victor, reading prayers for the dying. So when he died, the nation was shocked, and the shops put up their shutters. And Princess Mary wrote to the Queen of the Princess of Wales. The despairing look on her face was the most heart-rending thing I've ever seen. Wikipedia stated Prince George wrote, "How deeply I did love him, and I remember with pain nearly every hard word and little quarrel I ever had with him, and I longed to ask for his forgiveness, but at last it's too late now." And Albert Victor's mother, Alexandra, never fully recovered from her son's death and kept the room in which he died as a shrine, his hairbrushes and shaving things all ready, and a fire burning in the grate. So he has a tomb in St. George's Chapel, Windsor. It's really nice, but it lies in a space to the rear of the main church, separate from where the rest of his family lies. Few of the tourists who shuffle past it probably have any idea who he was. So Prince Eddy was loved by his family, and they supported him through his learning difficulties, his scandals with his love life, and they never gave up on trying to help him. He was sent into the Navy to help him find direction. His father and mother loved him and tried all they could do to help him. Queen Victoria thought that finding him a wife would help anchor him. She found him the right one, but unfortunately, he died before he could marry his fiancée, Mary of Teck. It's hard to know how Eddy would have been as a king. He seemed to have taken after his father in having scandals, but King Edward VII was the first constitutional British sovereign, and he paved the way for the British monarchy. So he turned out a very good king. And it seems that things turn out the way they should because George V took over the throne after his father's death, and he became a decent and popular monarch. And he reigned England through difficult times and kept Britain's morale up during the war. I had never heard of Prince Eddy before, and I found this part of the royal history interesting, and I hope you did too. If you enjoyed the video, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. I hope everybody's been having a good day, and click on the notification bell if you want to be notified when new videos are released. Tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.